Hi, everybody. We're live. Crypto Corner with John and Jayse. Look who's back. We missed him for a while.
Been a little bit.
Yeah. So, what have you been up to? I know you've been you got some invites to some speaking engagements, and you've been doing some exciting stuff. What's been going on?
Yeah, I was going back and forth to Sedona for a few weeks. I did a workshop up there for the Rise of the Guardians conference, which was my friend Rion de Rouen's conference.
Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing. And I uploaded that recording to my YouTube channel. So if you guys haven't seen it, it's a free hour-long crypto workshop, basically intro to kind of all the stuff that, we tend to talk about here. So go catch that on my YouTube channel. And then, I went back up there to work the Graham Hancock conference, which was about a week and a half later. So did a vending booth there and met a lot of cool people.
Did you say Graham Hancock?
Yeah, the ancient history and architecture guy.
Yeah, I saw him on Joe Rogan. He's really good.
Yeah, he was super cool. And so he was there. He was the main headliner of the conference. And then there's a guy named Jimmy Corsetti, who has also been on Joe Rogan and has his own big YouTube channel called Bright Insight. And he's friends with some friends of mine, so I got to meet him too. And he's the one that's really popularizing Göbekli Tepe right now. Have you heard of that? Göbekli Tepe in Turkey?
Yeah.
That's like the main ancient history spot that they're saying is rewriting human history as far as how old it is, because I guess it dates back to 13,000 years ago, which is right around the time of kind of the flood mythology and Atlantis and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the mainstream archaeology hates both of them. They really go after Graham and Jimmy for focusing in on Göbekli Tepe in particular, and it's a big kind of let's see, I don't want to use a trigger word here, but a big dark hotspot for them to try to manipulate, our understanding of history and things like that.
Yeah, I was Lisa and I were watching something with him too, and they were talking. They found underground, a lot of underground.
Is that the pyramid?
Yeah, it was. And this was quite several months ago. They went down 3 stories, but when they found them all, they were lined up in such a way that they were all going to I don't know if it was the north, Sirius or something like that.
Was that different than was that the one underneath the Great Pyramid, or is this something else?
Well, no, it wasn't. Not that it wasn't on the Great Pyramid. No, it was in maybe Malaysia. No, it was a country like that.
Huh.
Yeah, it was in Indonesia. I think it was in one of a country like that. But the mainstream archaeologists were giving them a whole bunch of crap, but they didn't even want to go look at it. And when the archaeologist that was there from that country, they were going through it, going, look at this. They would have had to move 80-ton stones. It was crazy. There was no way, and it was lined up perfect. They said you couldn't do it today with today's technology.
Yeah.
But he's real. That's cool that you got to meet him, and at least he's cool in person too. That's cool.
Yeah, I didn't get to meet Graham himself, but I got pretty close to him and hanging out in the same area. But I got to meet and hang out with Jimmy, who is close with Graham. And actually, so a quick story. They were supposed to. So Jimmy and my friends who were friends with him, they went to Turkey to visit Göbekli Tepe just about a month and a half ago, right before this conference. And they put all this bombshell information online as far as how they're actually disrupting the site. They're making it into a tourist hotspot, and they've drilled massive holes into the infrastructure itself, into the actual ruins. And they're trying to keep it kind of hush hush, but they got all this video of how they've essentially destroyed a lot of it. And also they had planted all of these olive trees over the ruins, which was their way of basically trying to hide it and simultaneously destroy it, because the roots of those trees get into the ruins and just, it destroys the archaeology that's preserved. And then in Turkey, it's illegal to remove an olive tree once it's planted. So he had made a big fuss about this. And then while they were out there, they were actually removing the trees. And they were supposed to plan a group tour to Göbekli Tepe in Turkey this fall. And I was going to go. But after they came back, the media and these mainstream archaeologists have just gone on a full attack on Jimmy and Graham. And so they've had to cancel the tour because basically they're under threat of arrest if they show back up there. So I'm a little bummed because now I don't get to go see it, but still like, they're making progress.
Yeah. It's anytime you're making a big splash or you're doing something that's going to be of impact, that's what's going to happen. So if when no one's bothering you or you have no one trolling you, you're not, you're probably not making the impact you could be or should be, because as soon as you start to make the bigger the splash, the bigger the static that's going to come towards you.
Yep.
That you have to handle. So,
but
all right. Well, I'm glad to have you back.
Just real quick, I'll say too, on the conference circuit, I'm going to be speaking at the Rebels of Disclosure conference in St. Louis. Daryl James had to back out for personal reasons. He's not able to go, so I'm filling his spot there. Nice. And super honored to do so. So yeah, I'm excited for that. And then I'm going to be doing a crypto speaking panel with Aaron Kuhn of Journey to Truth and Patrick Riley.
So I want to see when's that going to go on?
The panel's going to be Tuesday. So if you're watching the live stream, it'll be Tuesday evening.
Tuesday?
Yeah, I don't know what time exactly, but I think maybe around something like that.
That should be good. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. I saw that. I saw it when the first promo came out, and then I'm bummed that I'm not going to be going to this Journey to Truth.
Yeah,
I would love to hang out, and but Lisa's going to be going, so she'll be going there. But so we're gonna have to catch you guys in Arizona soon, because I know we want to go. We're probably going to have to make a trip out there, sooner than later. As soon as I get enough time in at work.
Are you going to the XRP Las Vegas event at the end of this month? Did you hear about that?
No.
So it's really expensive. I don't have a ticket to the main conference. I think it starts at like $1,000, but it's the biggest community-run XRP conference in the world. And it's at the very end of this month in May in Vegas, I think at the MGM. So they're going to be doing a lot of like, affiliated free events around it. So we're thinking about maybe going out there and trying to swing that. And if we do, I'll definitely hit you up. And that
would be awesome. Yeah, that'd be cool if you guys came down.
Yeah.
Because we can go there and check out some of the periphery events, and you never know who you meet. And they walk us right in the main event.
Yeah, exactly.
How it works.
So, but I'm excited to see Lisa there, even though we're going to be missing you at the conference.
Yeah. And you know what? Believe me, she's been going through it with, family stuff, and, they've been going on, and she's like the rock that all the water, like all the problems hit up against, and the kids are calling, or the moms, now that they're a little older, there's always an issue. And so it's Lisa. So her getting away and unplugging, but she needs it. So I'm happy she's going, but I hate that she's going alone, but I'm happy she's going.
Yeah, for sure.
But, all right. So let's get, we'll jump in. And I just, wanted to say that, there was a lot of comments, and I got a lot of comments, kind of offline that everyone missed you with Crypto Corner, and because they love your input, because you're very insightful with crypto. And I just wanted to, you're back. I'm happy you're back. Everything feels like it's like, kind of normalized again. I got used to having you there. And so I'm very happy you're back, my friend. And, but we tried to hold it down as best we could. And now, while you were off, you had some speaking engagements going on, and getting yourself out there, which is awesome. You should be, and people should hear what you have to say. We took a deep dive into some of the Ripple ecosystem, and the coins it has to stay in line with, kind of a conscious crypto academy. and what you talk about, the coins. And so we'll continue that as well. But today we'll back to tag teaming again, and we're going to come in hot, and we're going to look at some a unique meme coin that Jayse is looking at that's been doing really well. And then also Stronghold we're going to go into. So this show, it's more than just gains, right? Gains and losses. And it's more about clarity and giving everybody an understanding that it's not too complicated where you can't participate and you can't have some financial abundance, as well as there's somebody that could always reach their hand out and kind of help you out and lift you up. And you have, again, you have a mentor. If you need a coach, you could have a one-on-one with Jayse. And any questions you ask, Jayse and I feel like we're both as generous as possible as we can with the information and knowledge we've built over the years to help and accommodate anyone's questions. So you're not alone in this. And again, we want to try and get some information out to you, do with it what you will, but we're always going to want to simplify, have some laughs, and if we could all level up together, that's the goal. And so welcome back, Jayse, happy to have you. And
thank you.
We are going to jump in here.
And real quick, if I may jump in real quick, just for my viewers, since I'm streaming this to my channel now too, if you guys are tuning into this over there and you're not familiar with John, John and I have been doing this show we've been trying to do it every other week with some gaps in between, but for a while we were pretty good at being consistent every other week, and we're getting back into it. But yeah, we do a show every other week on his channel that I'm going to be streaming to my channel now too, because we got that set up. And John, you're welcome to explain your background a little bit, but John has a background in banking and financial advice and has been in that industry where I have not. So he really brings, the complementary information and perspective that I don't have. I never really dabbled in the traditional financial system at all. I've only been in crypto. Yeah. So it's a really good combination of expertise and perspectives that I think we bring. Yeah. Thanks for that. And so I started out, in the 90s on Wall Street. So I was a Wall Street broker. In the 90s were just a glorious time. Everyone made money. It was a great bull market in the .com era. So I was a broker, and then I realized that I wanted to keep expanding. So I went into insurance. So I was selling all types of insurance products, retirement, investment, advisory, building assets under management. Had a very large book. Came out to Vegas, and then that's when I went on into the banking side. But still, I was over the state of Nevada for Colonial Bank for their brokerage, and then they went out of business in 2008. And so for the next 4 years, a lot of fun trying to make something, because none of the banks were hiring anymore. The financial system was in a room. But because of the stuff I had behind me, I was able to go door to door. And Lisa, my wife, was in banking as well. And once we got back into the bank, I had her get licensed too. And so we were both kind of trying to do our thing there. But I ended up being fully in the banks. I was over a very big territory for Bank of America. I had, about 140, 150 salesmen, a sales team, which I love. That's my passion, is coaching, and especially coaching salespeople. And so between brokerage and bank, and being in sales, that's kind of been my background. But yeah, I feel like me and Jayse together are really good, because I had no idea about crypto, man. I was like in the dark, and I couldn't figure that out by myself, which totally irked the shit out of me, because I was like, I could figure it out, but I couldn't. But once I hooked up into the Conscious Crypto Academy with Jayse, getting to know him a little bit. It was just a great fit. And every 2 weeks. And the reason why there were some gaps is I started to work again.
And so with the schedule, we like going live. And so now it's going to be on Thursdays because this is the day off I'll have. Thursdays, and we'll try and stay consistent with a time that works. And I just want to make sure it's good for Jayse as well. And but I think both of us together have a great complement to each other, where we can really go into what people have as far as traditionally what they've had, and coming into the new financial system. There's some big things on the horizon with that, and I don't know if you heard, but one of my customers from when I worked selling gold and silver, he just sent me something. They're talking about the emergency broadcast system. They were on the global news. Now, I've been hearing about this emergency broadcast system, that it was going to shut down for this amount of time, and it hasn't happened. But I never saw it in the news. And he sent me the news article from a global news station, and so that was different. And I think that today Trump is going to be doing some type of address today, and Trump was saying that it's going to be good news. It's good news. He can't tell us what it is, but it could be trade deals. Something about.
He did it right before this call. From what I just got the gist of it, but it was essentially a trade deal with the UK that was super friendly, that was going to allow us to export a bunch of things to the UK now. So I don't know the details beyond that, but some kind of breakthrough trade deal with the UK. And I don't know if that's the thing that he was alluding to a couple of days ago, when he was like, hey, we have this huge bombshell announcement. I don't know if that was this or if this is something else.
Yeah, I don't think so, only because he was saying that this is something that hasn't been revisited in years, and it's amazing news. So with the trade deals, that's relatively this year.
Yeah, true.
So I think that So what I'm hoping for is that it's on the something with the financial system, or with the Iraqi money. Those things, because once those things, once they fall in place, or the new system, they flip that switch where they have the gold back note, gold back bonds. Once that flips, then that's good news. That's
everything we've been waiting for. That's the whole flip of the switch moment in the XRP culture.
Yep, and that's going to be a massive springboard for that's a massive springboard for us, because that's what a lot of investors thought they can get paid out.
So to add to this, and to briefly touch on relevant news story before we dive into the technical crypto stuff, did you see there was two big stories with Ripple over the last few weeks that I don't know if you had covered when you did your solo show or not, but one of them was that Ripple acquired Hidden Road, which is a huge payment processor, and I'm not familiar with them, but apparently they're like super legit, do like trillions of dollars. There's like 1.5 trillion or something in transactions annually, I think.
Wow.
And Ripple acquired them for like 1 billion and some change, I believe. And with that's something that's getting the people outside of our XRP circles to pay attention. I've been seeing a lot of like Bitcoin podcasters and Bitcoin influencers who would, just poo-poo XRP and have crapped on it for years, because that's how Bitcoin maxis tend to be like that. They don't really like XRP because it's competition to their Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing tons of content of those people going, oh, wow, the things that the XRP community have been saying for years that we thought was just crazy talk, like it's finally actually manifesting. And this acquisition of this Hidden Road company was a big signifier of that for a lot of these, quote unquote normies who aren't into the XRP side of things. So that was a really big deal. And, those transactions that Hidden Road processes are going to be eventually processed on the XRP ledger. So that's more of that liquidity that,
on demand.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever I don't know if it's going to be through their on-demand liquidity specifically, because that it seems like they're kind of shifting that maybe, but everything that they end up acquiring, I'm assuming they're going to put that value and run it on XRP, whether it's transactions through Hidden Road or it's the RLUSD stablecoin, which is already built on XRP. It's just showing us more and more like, oh, it really is all the money that we're talking about in the next, 5-10 years. I think that's going to be tokenized and brought on chain, and real world assets and things like that, which are, like Sologenic that we talked about. They're the kind of leader for XRP and doing those real world assets and all of that. And then another quick thing was there was a leaked report that was verified that Ripple put in a bid of, I believe it was 5 to 8 billion to purchase the company Circle, which is who runs the USDC stablecoin, which is basically the biggest stablecoin out there next to USDT. So USDC and USDT are like the biggest stable coins. And USDT is the one that has got all this controversy around if it's actually backed by US dollars and if it's fraudulent and all this stuff. USDC has definitely been the more legitimate one. And then obviously Ripple introduced their own stable coin, the RLUSD, in the last few months. So USDC is basically the biggest competition for Ripple. And I even saw that Circle, prior to this announcement, Circle was basically discussing services that would essentially rival Ripple's services with on-demand liquidity and payments and things like that. So it came out that they had put in a bid to buy them for 5 to 8 billion, and it got rejected. They said it was too low, but then the rumor was that they responded with a $20 billion bid. And I don't know if that's true, but that's a big increase from 5 to 20. But imagine buying your biggest competition, and they would, that would be like a home run for Ripple, really.
I wonder. But their payment process is like, so if they're a payment processor, Ripple right now, they can process payments right through what they do. So
I'm not sure if Ripple can directly or if they have to be certified as a bank in order to do that. But this group they acquired definitely is a payment processor. But I'm not sure with Ripple themselves as far as the.
Well, the only reason I ask is it's better off if they weren't and they acquire them, because but you don't want like a monopoly thing coming into effect. So if they have another facet of it that's just going to kind of complete the circle, then that's great. That works. That's fine.
And that's kind of what Sologenic did with their brokerage license, because in order to tokenize these real world assets, like we talked about in the past with Sologenic, stocks and gold and bonds and all that, you need a brokerage license. And for years they were talking about, trying to get one in the United States. I think they already have one in Dubai, which they're very active there too. But they recently acquired, and I don't remember if we talked about this on the last one or if this occurred after, but they acquired they partnered with a group called Texture Capital, who is a licensed broker dealer. And so Sologenic and Texture Capital created a new entity that they call SoloTex. And that's the hybrid entity that is going to do the legal tokenization on XRP and on Corium utilizing Sologenic. And then the guy who runs Texture Capital was in the recent SEC crypto roundtable meetings that they had over the last couple months. So that was a big move too, because there was only like 8 people or so that were a part of that roundtable, and he was one of them. So it's looking good.
Let me ask you: if you tokenize gold, say whatever, what is, so they're putting an algorithm, and it's like I guess a token, but that's the technology that's in there, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how it's actually done on the technical level with like the backing per se. Like if Sologenic or Texture Capital then act as like a a redeemer for that tokenized version of gold, but there would have to be some way to be able to swap it back into physical gold, or maybe there isn't, but I would imagine there would be eventually. But you would at least be able to get the value of having something on the blockchain. So you'd be able to put it in a wallet. You might be able to like stake it or put it in a liquidity pool or something like that. Swap it into other cryptos.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not physical, like if it was just 5 stocks, right, or five different coins, right? You could tokenize a basket, right?
Yeah.
You could do like some of the Uphold has that where there's baskets.
Yeah.
So I would just think it's probably technology and that goes through it. But I was thinking about it, I said, now it would be interesting to find out how, to tokenize stuff and what you have to do to be someone who can tokenize.
Yeah, well, that's yeah. You definitely need the broker dealer license, because that was the big thing they were waiting on. But this gets into the area that I'm not as familiar with that you are. But we'll have to do some research on it. But I know like Uphold, for instance, Uphold being a centralized exchange, they have their own digital gold on there that you can hold, but it's their own reserves backing it, I'm assuming, because they're a centralized company. So this is different in that however they do it, it's going to be decentralized. And so I don't know where the redemption is coming from at that point, but somehow it's going to work, and they're building it.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's got to be the two sides of the ledger. For every buy there's a sell, for every sell there's a buy, and they could do it. But and the technology has got to be just through the roof, because they got to track everything for taxes, if it's a whatever it is, and because it opens up so many doors. Because idea started to like flood my brain as soon as I heard what it can do. Yeah. Or what things that could be tokenized coming from that, that world, that can make things so much simpler. Yeah. On the blockchain. So I was wondering, because you get big enough and you start tokenizing your own, you can probably tokenize your own like basket of stuff. That'll be, like let's say J&J, basket of, whatever, but it could be collectible art. It could be anything. Yeah, that'd be cool. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that'd be interesting. Once we go step by step. But I think that for down the road, I would love to see how to do that, because it's like having your own, instead of having a brick and mortar, you have it tokenized on. You know what I mean? And you could reach the globe.
Yeah, so, nice. I was just listening to Warren Buffett talk about how he's not as big of a fan of real estate as he is stocks, because of the complications that are involved in the upkeep of negotiations with real estate, constant negotiations, constant upkeep, versus stocks, which, you just make a trade and you're done and you hold it. Yeah. And then crypto is even easier than stocks. So it's going to be making all of that easier to access, whether it's real estate, stocks, gold, like having it all tokenized is going to make that level playing field that you hear Trump talk about a lot.
Yeah. How you doing, Juggernaut? Probably was that one of your Academy dudes?
I don't recognize them, but yeah, they're in my chat. So yeah.
How you doing? Yeah. Thanks for joining. But I don't know if you saw, but Warren Buffett was sitting in a large cash position, and he just invested in 290 something billion in treasuries. Wow. It's the first time he's done it. And he's up at about anywhere between 4% and 6%. And the actual Federal Reserve owns more than them by like billions. He owns more than the Federal Reserve of treasuries. And it came out in the news like, I think maybe a week and a half ago or something. It's an amazing amount of money. But he went into treasuries, and he's never done that. And so they were saying that he may be anticipating the real estate getting hit. Yeah. Wow. Because that's what that would signify, because that means rate everything will start to come down. And if he's locked in, at 4 or 6% on that type of money, because he's a buy and hold guy. That was his whole, since, when you read about his investment strategies, he buys undervalued businesses, he goes in, and then he just to buy and hold. So We'll see. But
Hey,
extraordinary.
I would not complain if real estate comes down when crypto goes up, because that would be
Right?
the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Forget about it. Lisa will be Sedona. Here we come. We'll be going there early.
Exactly. Yeah.
But all right. So what we'll do? So we'll do let's go into the snapshot of some of the things that are going on in the markets, and we'll hit the markets, and then we're going to go into Stronghold and a new meme coin that we'll bring up when the time is right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're going to do Stronghold and a meme coin. So right now we have, Bitcoin, it looks like it rebounded a little bit to 95,870. And so it has some support, and it looks like some institutional accumulation is happening. And like, it seems like it's having a lot of, the confidence in it seems to be holding it up. And then you have also Ethereum recovered above 1,800. And it looks like because of the ETF, renewed ETF inflows. So after previous outflow. So that's that's interesting, because when you look at the SLV and GLD, which is the ETF for gold and silver, and instead of buying the actual physical metal, what people try to do is they go into that because it's cheaper to get into it. But what started to happen is people go into that stuff because it was supposed to be collateralized by actual physical metal, where if you wanted to take the silver or gold out of that, you can. But come to find out, probably about 2 years ago now, that maybe 10 or 20% was physical metal backing that, not what people thought. And so it's one of those things where if a couple of people wanted to, mature their money and take some silver or gold, they could have. But the problem is when a bulk of people want redemption in that way, there's no way for them to handle that. And so that's when all that started to come out. And then the outflows started to just dwarf any type of inflows. And so it really started to, they came down and stood very, very, very flat. They were doing nothing, even when silver and gold were moving. And so with Ethereum, it looks like at least there's maybe some renewed interest in it, because they had some inflows after, I guess, they had a lot of outflows, which caused them to take a hit. But as far as Bitcoin and Ethereum, do you see them moving? Are they complementary, or are they in direct competition with each other? Or if Bitcoin goes, the market goes still, or does that hold true for Ethereum too?
Right now it does, in that Bitcoin is still the leader of the whole speculative crypto market. Mm-hmm. So typically the way it works in these 4-year cycles is that, Bitcoin goes through this halving event every 4 years, where the miners make half the amount. So the supply goes down essentially and demand goes up, and that's what drives the price increase. Mm-hmm. And then usually historically about a year after that is when Bitcoin has topped out, a year after the halving, which we're past that right now. And then as Bitcoin finds its new top and starts to come down, people are taking that liquidity and they're selling it into Ethereum and these other, XRP and other altcoins. Mm-hmm. And then that's what they call alt season, or alternative coin season. So Bitcoin will start to come down, the others will come up. However, we're in kind of a different situation now, where I think we're breaking that pattern. There's a financial guy, you might know him, Raoul Pal, I think his name is Raoul Pal. He had a clip going viral around that was talking about how we're no longer in these speculative 4-year cycles. We've kind of broken out of that. And he says we're now in a liquidity and a debt cycle that is determining the state of the market. So I think we're basically on that brink of utility and regulations and everything shifting that structure of the 4-year kind of geometry. And I don't know, in the long term, I'm not too confident on Bitcoin and Ethereum, but in the short term, they could definitely run up. And I know Ethereum has kind of been stunted in its growth a little bit over the past couple years, but people online seem to, at least the Ethereum holders seem to be hopeful that it's going to have a run in the next few months, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. You know what? It's for some, I mean, I like, as many coins can do well. I'm happy for, because it's positive for the market. And I think it'll give everything a push up.
Yeah.
That being said, with Bitcoin, but since Bitcoin has been up there for so long, not so much, but Ethereum, to me, like when I look at the energy I get from it, or like, that I feel, is like it's clunky.
Yeah, but it is.
It just seems like an awkward, like clunk, like when those big, like doofy guys trying to play sports, and like you could tell, like they're like lurch trying to move around. Like that's what it seems like. It seems like it's very clunky and like a fluid space.
Well, think about it this way: like basically, Ethereum was created to compete with XRP and Ripple, and where XRP and Ripple are super cheap, frictionless, instant, essentially free, level playing field.
Yeah.
The Dark's solution to that was to create their own system that is super centralized and has a ton of friction that they can profit off of that friction, which is why the fees on Ethereum are so insanely high. Like you could send $20 in Ethereum and you could pay $50 in fees for your $20. So it's really catered to the top holders, and it's the top holders that make those fees. And then when you look into the whales that are the top holders of Ethereum, it's all sketchy, weird stuff. The way that they were all kind of anonymized and privatized in the beginning. And there's a great documentary, if you guys haven't seen it, if you're watching, called Rigged from the Start, the SEC's War on Crypto. And when I saw it last, it was like $15 to rent from their website. I don't think it's on streaming yet, but Rigged from the Start, the SEC's War on Crypto. And it goes really deep into the whole background on how dark Chinese money combined with JP Morgan, combined with the Biden SEC, got together to front run Ethereum as the new global one world currency, while going after Ripple and XRP to try to destroy them. Wow.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, what I'm happy about is that the feeling I got was right. Yeah. It's funny. I was just talking about it on a previous show, and you talk about it too, right? Conscious Crypto Academy. You gotta, you feel into what you're going to invest in, right? So you have your group of coins you like, but you want to see which ones are going to have the utility, right, that you like, and the ones that feel right, the ones that are going to do right. And so, I was talking about that to everybody. And so as I was talking about it, all of a sudden I get a pop-up too, and we were talking about, XRP and what it can, how people are being drawn to it. And all of a sudden it came across my screen and said, Whales wallets increased from I was like, I may be a little off on the numbers, like 1,537 whales, right? To now, with just in, I think maybe a quarter of time, maybe 3 months, to like 1,582, right? But the whales are anywhere between $10 and $110 million wallets. Right. So the average is 55 million. So if it's like, say, 37 extra wallets at 55 million, an average of 55 million, that's a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
That got added in. And so, it just, and it was as I was like, when I was actually talking about it, and when you feel into something and you feel it's doing good, and then all of a sudden it came up, and it just kind of felt like it all meshed, where even some, you got some big guys that are feeling the same, maybe they're feeling the same thing, but I think it's so true. Like when I look at it, like Ethereum is something that you can invest in it whenever you'd like. And it just, every time I looked at it, I never had that to go into it where, with the ones that we talk about, and some other ones that I went into, I had a feeling, you have this feeling and intuition that, you know what, there is stuff behind it, but it's just not a blind intuition where it's like, you just, woo-wooing about it. It's not, that. It's, you're putting the work in to do the research, listen to what it does, make sure they like with Ripple, every time they buy somebody or they go into business with somebody, though the people they're going into business with are credible, very credible, and at a high level. Yeah. And so they're not just, they're doing things flippantly or just because there's a huge market of people and they know they're going to get a percentage of them. So who cares? We'll just do what we got. Maybe we'll get an influx of cash. That's not what they do. And you could kind of get that feeling. And I just thought it was interesting that the feeling I got off Ethereum. And then when you talk about it, and even Juggernaut was saying Ethereum, deep state money extractor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just interesting the way things sometimes play out, right, and pan out. Yeah. So,
and that makes me think of too, kind of related note, like the dark pools. That, like when you're talking about the big connect and the wallets, the top wallets getting a lot more funding. I think there's these dark pools going on where you have institutions probably buying XRP over the counter off of the open market. They're buying it at market price, but their large orders aren't pumping the charts like you'd expect them to, which is why you constantly see these big money wallets get more and more, but it's like the chart isn't really reflecting it. And so where Bitcoin is manipulated to have an artificially high price because of primarily this USDT tether, they print it, they go in just like the Fed, they go and print and they make a bunch of this new stable coin. And then most of it goes into Bitcoin. And people have seen through their research that it's inflating the price of Bitcoin. Now, on the other end, you have XRP, which is artificially low, which is great for really everybody. It's great for us because we have a longer opportunity to buy, but it's also great for us for what's about to happen, because if this liquidity is all being bought up over the counter and it's not raising the price, eventually what is available on the open market is going to be dried up, and the market is going to respond and snap back to these dark pools that have acquired so much at market price over the counter without raising the price. And eventually there's going to be a massive increase to kind of swing back in the other direction. And then Bitcoin will probably do the opposite, and that'll catalyze an even further shift between the two.
Yeah. I mean, when you get the the dark money does that, right, and it's not hitting the market as they're buying, but where the risk in that is if they dump it, right?
Which I don't think they will, because they need it as they're buying it because they need it as a settlement technology, not just for the investment. Like it's more so the settlement technology, I think, than it is the investment opportunity. But they're obviously aware that if the price goes up, then it's going to be good for their collateral and everything as well.
Right. So it's just we used to see that on Wall Street a lot, because when you see a lot of the smaller firms, what they would do is, and this is different, but when you see it happen, it's pretty wild, because there'll be an IPO and one company would take it public and it would be flying, and then all of a sudden you start to see this weird dynamic start happening. But what it was there was another company that's in competition, and they started shorting the hell out of it, and because it was really a very thin trade. It was very thin traded, and it was kind of artificially being pushed up. Yeah. As soon as they started shorting the stock, and it just went to like nothing. Yeah. And it caused a lot of friction on Wall. It was a lot of friction that would go on. So it's just like it's an odd thing, but with the tech, there's a little different, because it's technology. It's something that they could use, and if they need to, like I said, collateralize anything else, if it's moving up, why they're not gonna sell it, because they're not shorting it. They bought it. So if they short it, they have an interest in it going down. But if they're going long, it going up is where they need it. But it just, some of it, with the dark players involved, it reminds me of that's how it was in the 90s. Because in the 80s and 90s, I wasn't there in the 80s, but in the 90s I was, and it was like the Wild West back then. on so.
And I don't even know, like, when I talk about the dark pools, I don't necessarily mean like deep state money, but just like stuff that's off the books, that's off the traditional market, that you're going through, like private brokers who the public market isn't reflecting those buys in the way that you would expect it to.
Yeah. So that's what brought, like, so if we were in a smaller firm and we had to buy from a customer, we didn't want the stock. Any sell would push that stock down. So let's say you called in and you wanted to sell, you're like, John, I need you to sell my 50,000 shares. I'd be like, all right, give me a second, blah, blah, blah. I'll call you right back. And then I would turn around to the whole room. I got a seller of 50,000 shares, get on the phones. And then they would get on the phones and have someone, so they would buy up those 50,000 shares. And so instead of trading it on the market, so they see a sell, what'll happen is those people who are buying it are actually buying your stock. And all we're doing is I'm taking it out of my book.
Yeah.
And it's a ledger entry in another broker's book of business. And so it don't hit the market because sales, we didn't want any sells hitting the market.
And that's all legal, right? You like, there's no.
Well,
did they outlaw that eventually? Or
gray area.
Gray area, yeah.
You can't do that after the 90s. No, it's a big no. But during the 90s, they that's what they did all the time. They did it all the time. But that the practice of doing that was it started to. What happens is it starts to run rampant. Because anytime you have anybody doing stuff like that, it never stays where it needs to stay, right? Because the lines get blurred, and then it starts happening at a level where and that's why that's when it becomes illegal, because the pendulum goes too far, and they go, okay, we're cutting it off, right? Everything can't cut off, and it goes back the other way. But I'm telling you, it was wild. I mean. It was wild. It was a blood.
That was like the era of like Wolf of Wall Street, right? That was supposed to be in the 90s. Like,
so he was in the late 80s, early 90s, 87 to like in the early 90s, and then he got in trouble. But what he did, it gave birth to boiler rooms.
Yeah.
Throughout the 90s, mid 90s, and when it got into the later 90s. Is when it started. It was crazy because that's when that's when the law enforcement was like all over those guys.
Yeah.
And so it was nutty, but it was in the beginning when I first went to Wall Street, it was a lot of fun because you like all your friends. You see all your friends from the avenue are all around there, and that's what they were. And I'm like, what? When did you become a stockbroker? You were like, not who you want to even associate with. And all of a sudden he puts a suit on and he's a stockbroker. I was like, holy, this is nuts. But I tell you, it was a lot of fun.
He was doing it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was like all the guys from Brooklyn were all of a sudden in the city.
Yeah.
But but it was my friends did that. No, I didn't do that.
Yeah. Well, let's want to get into the Stronghold and meme coin stuff, because I'll take off in a little bit here. So Stronghold. All right. So with Stronghold, what would you say, like the top two things about details about Stronghold that when people can see what the actual utility of it is? Yeah. So here, I'm going to see if it'll let me share my screen here, because I've got their website pulled up. Let me see if I can share it. Okay. Can you see this here?
Yeah, I just added it to stage.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, their website is stronghold.co. And what's first off, the thing that really I think separates them from a lot of other crypto companies is that they were already a functioning, profitable financial company based around payments outside of what they were doing with crypto. So where a lot of other crypto projects are like startups, where they're saying, hey, this is everything we're going to do, invest in our crypto, and we're going to do this, this, and this on our roadmap down the line. With Stronghold, they were already profitable, already functioning as a payment service infrastructure provider, and then they're integrating their cryptocurrency SHX into it. So right now, what they're primarily focused on is providing financial payment infrastructure for businesses and services that are essentially shadow banned by the banks that can't get traditional banking services. So I know they've been working with like the cannabis industry in California, other industries that have kind of been, not given normal payment access. But their bigger thing that they're doing is I think that they're going to become the new version of Square or Clover or these mobile payment processors that you use when you go to a restaurant or when you go to the mall or when you go wherever, even online. Those took over pretty quick, like Square and Clover, and they're constantly kind of shifting. You're seeing new ones come out. So I think that these guys have a good chance of replacing that. And they also, well, here you can see their kind of, what do you call it? Their recognition or their partnerships with certain groups. Forbes FinTech Top 50. They got the Visa Everywhere Initiative Award 2022, Global Association of Women in Payments, because the CEO is a woman. And then they've worked with IBM is probably the most notable big one. So they developed a private stable coin for IBM in 2018. Not their SHX token, but a different thing that was specifically for internal payments within IBM. And it was kind of an experiment, I think. And I think it went really well. Since then, they've very much like Ripple, they've been very on the down low about their partnerships and their connections and almost underselling themselves. Like at one point on their white paper here, they had all these connections, just like Ripple used to have all these. Ripple used to have a scrolling banner on their website of every bank and institution and government that they were partnered with. And then right around the time of the SEC case, they took it all down and they stopped talking about all their connections. And Stronghold is very similar, where they used to have these certain connections that they had publicly talked about, like Walmart and other big like retail providers, but namely Walmart being one of the largest ones, where they discussed that they were going to have these payment services in these huge retail stores where it'll be the payment, the point of service, point of sale, but also it would have a blockchain, not only blockchain infrastructure built into it, but blockchain reward systems. And SHX would be the reward token that both parties, the merchant and the customer, get paid out in for participating in that point of sale transaction. So let's see. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen here, but they are essentially on a technology level. They're kind of the bridge between XRP and XLM. So they're built on XLM, which is Stellar. They're built on the Stellar network, but they have in their white paper that they're going to be a cross-chain bridge between XRP and XLM. So that's another thing that they've said. Basically, they've demonstrated that this is going to be way bigger than they're able to talk about right now, and I think they're under a lot of NDAs because of the current state of things. But I think that they're going to be massive, massive. And they're also bringing in DeFi, primarily for merchant customer interactions. So it also feels to me like this isn't necessarily for the masses. Like this isn't really intended for you or I to invest in. It's more so for their ecosystem and their infrastructure with this, point of sale system. And that's why I think it's not available on any of the large exchanges yet. So it's only pretty much available on the blockchain. You have to swap XLM or another crypto into it. I hope it does get listed on some of the big exchanges, but I almost wonder if it's not going to, because they don't want like retail necessarily buying it because it's supposed to be like a rewards token for their payment infrastructure. But this is one of the ones I've gotten really good vibes about. And I think that they're going to be a really big in the payments world, and Ripple has invested in them as well. So it shows you that.
Also, this is the one that you're saying that has the technology to actually help with elections down the road on if they to keep it to help with fraud.
It could, yeah. They do have a social governance system built in, and they've done several community votes so far. Where if you hold, tokens, your votes are equivalent to the amount of tokens that you hold. So both this and Corium have that social governance functionality. So it could, get integrated into some kind of elections or things like that. That would be pretty amazing.
So really, I know you got a heart out at 10. So, but I just want you to go into the meme coin really quick. Just which one you're looking at, so we get it out into the field there.
Yeah. Okay. So let me pull this up. So this is the meme coin website that for XRP meme coins in particular, it's called First Ledger. This is where you can kind of go and scroll and see them. So the one that I've been focusing on lately is this third biggest one right here. It's actually technically, I think it's the biggest meme coin on XRPL because Solo up here is not actually a meme coin. That's our Sologenic that we talked about. They just have that on here. And then this other one, XRPM, I think just has some weird glitchy tokenomics that's making it look like it's the biggest, but I don't know anybody that's ever even talked about that one. So that one's kind of a scam, but sorry, just getting a call there. So the Fuzzy is the biggest meme coin on XRP right now. And I just got into it in like the last week or so. Are you still with me here? Did I lose you?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, cool. So it is basically, it's based around the lore of the XRP ledger. So, have we ever discussed like the Ripple Riddlers before? These kind of, so there's these like insider accounts on X, Mr. Pool being one of them, and then another one called Bearable Guy 123. And I think that it's most likely David Schwartz. And what's so crazy is he literally, I got a notification that he tweeted the second that I said his name. That's pretty crazy. Right as I said David Schwartz, my phone lit up and David Schwartz had tweeted. I guess synchronicity is like that a lot. I think he is the one behind it. And they're basically accounts that put out information around that kind of show people what XRP is supposed to be. And it's kind of what's developed this like cult or spiritual following around XRP. And so it seems like this meme coin, not only is it referencing it, but I think it might be connected to them. And if you go to their website, which is fuzzyxrp.com, very well done. It's very professional. It's in the style of these riddles that this account has put out, which features this bear and these cartoon puzzles. But they give you the lore behind it. So, and this is all real. On January 1st, 2013, the Ripple Genesis wallet was activated on the XRPL. So that was Ripple creating their first wallet. On February 20th, 2013, Ripple activated the OpenCoin wallet. OpenCoin was what Ripple was called before they became Ripple.
Okay.
And then the next day, OpenCoin activated a wallet named Fuzzy Bear. And Fuzzy Bear placed a order on the decentralized exchange for 1 XRP for 1 Bitcoin. And it says Fuzzy Bear new XRP was built to be a better Bitcoin. So literally when Ripple was created, they created this wallet called Fuzzy Bear. And it ties into this whole Bearable Guy riddle it's essentially, if David Schwartz is the top cryptographer in the world, pretty much. He worked for the NSA in the 90s, and he created the patent for what would become crypto, a decade or more before Bitcoin was ever a thought.
Wow.
So it plays into this whole theory that, you know, David Schwartz is actually one of the Satoshis that made Bitcoin, that he could be Satoshi Nakamoto, which when asked about it, he has said it's possible, but it's not true, because he's like, because I didn't know about Bitcoin then, but he's like, but it's possible. So I don't know, this could be connected to them, or it could just have a really good community lore and story, and, you know, community vibe around it. But either way, it's worked its way to being the top meme coin on the XRP ledger right now. And that's a big difference from, you know, when I was talking about ZRP before. ZRP was, and I still hold my ZRP, by the way, but as I was telling you before, this ZRP kind of took a poop and didn't do too well. And maybe it'll come back, but it was never in the top meme coins. This one is literally the top meme coin. So
yeah, it looks like over the last 30 days, it's up 816%. Over the last 60 days, 2,100%. It looks like it said when I was looking it up.
Yeah, let's see. So let's go to the daily. Yeah, so right around April 9th when it took off. So in the last month, it went from, well, it lost a 0, it looks like. Oh, wait, no, it lost 2 zeros.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big change when you're talking about, what was it? 7 tenths, hundreds, thousands, 10,000. Yeah, 2 100,000ths of a penny, and it lost 2 zeros. So, I mean, that was.
I think wait, maybe it is 1 0. I'm trying to count. They all look the same. Okay, no, yeah, it went from 5 zeros to 4 zeros. So it lost 1 0. So it did a 10x over. I don't know, maybe the one you were looking at, maybe that was a different one. Because there's probably other fuzzies out there on other blockchains. But maybe it was, I don't know.
A 10x that's a big gain when you move one decimal place like that. You're going from, you know, 100,000th or a millionth of a penny to 100,000th of a penny. That's a big move.
Yeah.
Percentage wise.
Yeah. So, and right now the market cap is only at 18 million.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, the kind of discussion right now is what's going to be the first XRP meme coin to hit $1 billion market cap.
Do you think this one has the chance?
I think it definitely does have the chance. Yeah, I think so. Those other top ones that I was looking at previously, you know, when we were talking about meme coins before, kind of the biggest ones were like Army was kind of the big one, and then Phoenix and Drop, and then Sigma's got a really good community. I have a lot of friends that are connected to that one. But as far as like Army and Phoenix and these previous top ones, I just didn't get a good vibe about them. Like it just didn't draw me in, but something about this one just really intuitively drew me in and felt like it was going to be significant. And then there's all these decoders that are breaking down why they think it's actually like connected to, you know, David Schwartz, or some people think it's Uphold, that it's Uphold's meme coin, because Uphold was kind of teasing some things about potentially being connected to it. But even if it doesn't have any of those, you know, connections on the back end, it still has got a really good community, and they've done a really good job of kind of making it a fun, accessible community coin. So I think it's got good potential. And in general, with the meme coins, you can think about them as with the XRP meme coins, it's a way to kind of leverage your XRP with more risk but more reward. So David Schwartz actually has a post about this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. And I have a little bit more time. My guy just texted me saying he's running late. So I've got about another probably 25 minutes before I got to go. But let me see if I can find this tweet from David Schwartz, because he talks about the meme coins and actually kind of endorses them. Let's see. Here it is. So this is in relation to the automated market makers, which are the liquidity pools that are running on the ledger. So he says, I noticed something interesting about many meme coins on XRPL. In many cases, nearly all of their liquidity is in the form of an AMM between XRP and the meme coin. This means that if the price of XRP, say measured in dollars, goes up, say 5%, the price of the meme coin, again measured in dollars, goes up 5% automatically because the AMM maintains the same exchange rate to XRP. And that's because all these meme coins their charts are in XRP instead of in US dollars.
Okay.
Of course, the meme coin's price can change independently of the price of XRP, and an increase in the price of XRP leading to an increase in the price of the meme coin can trigger profit taking in the meme coin, even if it doesn't trigger profit taking in XRP itself. But still, it means that if you hold $50 worth of a meme coin of this type, one component of the future price of the meme coin will be changes in the price of XRP. In effect, you have some exposure to the changing supply and demand for the meme and some exposure to the changing value of XRP. So if you want to hold XRP, but want even more risk and even more volatility, consider holding a meme coin whose liquidity comes primarily from an automated market maker to XRP. Which I thought was a pretty cool breakdown.
Yeah. It's actually a really good way to it clarifies it nicely, exactly what it does and how it does it. And more importantly, XRP doesn't necessarily follow the profit taking of, the meme coin. So it's not back and forth because XRP is it's much more stable.
Yeah. 130 plus billion market cap for XRP. And these are all in the millions right now.
Yeah. So, but that's a really good way to explain it. David Schwartz, I gotta follow him.
Yeah, he's the main creator behind XRP on the technology side of it. So he's like the chief architect, and he's the current CTO of Ripple. He's really cool. I think he's probably one of the smartest dudes in the world, technology wise, and worked for the NSA in the 90s, and then in or in the late 80s, early 90s. And then in 89, I think he created a patent for what would become distributed ledger technology, which is basically blockchain. And it was basically like kind of a cloud computing distributed consensus patent. And that was in 89. So that, Bitcoin didn't come out until 2010. So that's like 21 years before.
He was a little bit ahead of his time, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit. So that's why people think that maybe he was, had a hand in creating Bitcoin. And at the very least, he was one of the biggest community developers for Bitcoin after it released. And then him and a couple of other people created XRP because they loved Bitcoin so much, but they were like, hey, it's got these scalability issues. It's got these certain drawbacks. So we want to create something that fixes those problems and is more scalable. And then they came up with XRP. And also, if you read his bio here, this is pretty interesting, or his banner above his profile picture. It says, Ripple, when a scrappy financial startup takes on a web of corruption and betrayal to bring instant payments to the masses, they learn that the cost of disrupting the status quo is higher than they could have ever imagined, forcing them to decide between their vision and their survival. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's that makes it, gives it a sense of mystery behind it, and like a battle, and going into a battle against a very strong enemy that you may or may not know is coming.
Yeah.
Or is coming, you just don't know how hard they're going to hit.
For sure.
That's that he definitely has a flair for the dramatic, because that's interesting. That makes you want to find out what it is. That's interesting the way he put that.
This is what he actually looks like. He doesn't look as as a cartoon.
That's a wolf dog.
Yeah, right. It looks like it.
Right.
It looks like it. It's funny because I've always called David a space Sasquatch. That's been my nickname for him. And the first time after I said that, like in the next few days, he literally posted a picture of himself standing in front of a hot dog stand that said Sasquatch. And I was like, what are the chances? Like that's pretty interesting.
What it reminds me of? Sitting there with the no shoes on. If you ever seen the movie The Big Short, it's about what happened in 2008.
Yeah, I got to rewatch it. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
So the character Brad Pitt played, with no shoes on, no barefoot in the office, and he had his guitar. But he was the one who figured, one of the first ones that figured out. We had the algorithm that figured out that we're going to go to a major recession, and everyone thought he was crazy.
Right.
And shut him down. And then he was one of the first ones, but he had the no shoes on. He was like kind of a hippie looking guy, but he was brilliant.
Yeah.
I
got to rewatch that.
That'd probably be movie.
Helpful right now.
But that's really interesting. Wow. So all right. So that's Stronghold and Fuzzy. So there's kind of a lot of functionality for it. Do you have anything else on that with this that you want to talk through?
I guess the only other thing that came to mind was in relation to his whole banner and everything. He had made a series of tweets like maybe a year or so ago where he literally said that XRP was created to free people from the central banks, because a lot of the haters of XRP will call it the banking coin and say, oh, Bitcoin's better because, Ripple's connected to all these banks and institutions. But I see it the same way as like when Trump first became president and he went around making deals. He did that tour amongst all the world powers, the Vatican, Saudi Arabia, India, China, like everywhere. And I see it the same way where they're kind of deal making on the same playing field. But he intentionally acknowledged that XRP was created to free people from that system, not to, push people further into it, which is pretty ballsy to say both that and put this on his banner when they're as big as they are. Yeah.
And because it's almost like you said, doing that is not only getting into an arena where you could get into a fight, it's almost calling it and saying, we had enough.
Yeah.
No, the bondage, no, we're not going to, we don't want to be in bondage by the money players any longer. And this is how we're going to free them and free us. And from that, from the debt enslavement and whatever, all the other words that they use for it, but to get our own sovereignty back. And really, you're sticking your finger in some powerful people's eyes.
Yeah.
So.
And I feel they probably feel a lot safer now with Trump in than they did a year or two ago. But I think he had this up on his profile before Trump even won the election. So that's interesting too, that, they were confident, but it's also like they're calling out what they're seeing going on and taking a stand publicly against it. And it's like, I don't know how you could see that and think that they're working with the deep state, like you can't call out the deep state that plainly. Plus the deep state's been the one that's been attacking them through the SEC, through Ethereum, through all these different, means to censor Ripple more than any other crypto. They wanted to censor Ripple.
You have to go if they're a deep state player, they are the worst deep state player ever, because they're going against their own.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's all I got to say about that.
Awesome. So it looks like they said that XRP is stabilized and showing resilience amid broader market volatility. So good news that our anchor is holding strong where it is. And then just going through some of the other markets and seeing what they're doing. Everyone looks at the Dow Jones. It's down 3.2% for April, but if watching it, it's been crazy because it was down, and also one day it was up like 2,000 points. I mean, it's up and down, but I was trying to tell in the last shows, don't get too caught up in the Dow, only because there's like 30 different types of stocks in there that really apply for America. And so when you look at the S&P 500, those are the biggest 500 American companies, right? The S&P 500, and then you have the big the 100, right? The Fortune 100. So these are the top 500 companies, the biggest companies in America. So the S&P is far better. I would, my opinion, because there's literally 500 companies in there that represent America specifically. And when you see what that's doing, you can get a better kind of hold on what America is doing, where we're going, and what those biggest companies are doing, because those companies are in every facet of our lives that we use every day. You know what I mean? So I think it's a much better gauge to see where it is. And the S&P has done, really well. It's had its volatility, but we're going to go through some pain points while we're going through some of the tariffs and the trade wars. And unfortunately, we still have a media that is still trying to, anything that, the president does is going to be met with, the biggest fear mongering and almost looks like they're going for the other side to win the trade wars, because they just don't want him to have a win. But regardless, I think more and more people are waking up and seeing it. But, they shoved it down in our face a lot. But, when you want to really see how America is doing, watch what the S&P is doing. I think that's a much better snapshot. And then you have, the NASDAQ, that's up a little bit. That even has probably more potential to show what America is doing than the Dow. So you have I think the markets, although they're still a little volatile, they were a lot more volatile within the first, 100 days of when and everything that was going on. But I think the volatility actually started to flatten out. And I think some of the timelines that we spoke about, and again, this wasn't investment advice, or it was just, an opinion on what I was looking at. I think the timelines of when I was saying that I think the volatility is going to flatten out as we move into June, into the summer months, and then the last, probably quarter and a half, we'll start to see some of the gains from the tariffs. Because the trade deals are going to have to be met by some of the big countries, because they can't. China's economy cannot handle that type of tariff. It'll hurt them far more than us, and they can't handle it. Although they're trying to show a strong hand, but I think these trade deals are going to start to be made, and when they do, because one of the things I was kind of saying with the administration is you have so many irons in the fire, and we're gonna have a deal, but it's like let's get a deal, right? Let's get one. Let's get one and put it behind us. Let's get a second. We know we have a bunch out there, but we Americans, I think on the whole, they want to see it that it's closed, close the business, and I think that's what's starting to happen now, because it's going to take some time. I was saying he's not a wizard, you know what I mean? He's not a magician. So it took a long time and a lot of corruption to get where we're at, and so I cannot get over how quickly stuff is happening. But it's just when we have the Trumpisms, when he says and it can happen very quickly. We'll get it done in a week or a day. That's just the way from New York. That's how we used to talk. Like, hey, I'll be there in 5 minutes. It doesn't mean I'm going to be there in 5 minutes. It's probably more like a half hour or not. But it's like I'll be there in 5 minutes. It's just how we It's just something. Yeah. So it comes off like, and they hold him to it. Like, he said 4 minutes. It's going to happen in 4 minutes and 32 seconds, and now it's 33 seconds. What a liar, and they go with it. So, but I think that I think the timeline that I was saying, I think it's going to be pretty close to what's actually going to happen. And then we have the bond markets that you have that are almost. It's crazy because you have the 2-year at 3.83% and the 10-year at 4.33. Them being that close, and then the 30-year is at 4.79. So you're looking at not even a full percentage point from a 2-year Treasury yield to a 30-year Treasury yield.
Wow,
that should not be that close. And for a while during the last administration, it was inverted. When the bond market had crashed, it was actually inverted. The 10-year had a higher rate than the 30-year, which is crazy. And so, and everyone goes into bonds because they think, it's supposed to be protective.
Safety.
But the problem is inflation goes up, and as interest rates go up, principal comes down. So everyone, they thought they were safe in their bonds, right? Because it's supposed to be protective, but as interest rates went up, their principal came down. So they're looking at, say they bought 100,000 in their bonds, and as interest rates went up, they saw that 100,000 go down, and it goes down in the same. It'll go down to get the same end result. So it'll go down an equivalent way. So say it goes up. Say interest rates go up 2%. Your bond that say has $100,000 face value, now it's at 98,000, right? So it kind of, that's how it works. It's inverse. So what they thought was their safety net, all of a sudden interest rates went up so high, and they took a massive hit on principal. So now they can't sell out of their bonds, and it becomes a longer term hold. But so it drove everything kind of a little wonky. But if you were listening and you had a certain percentage of your portfolio in, say, physical gold, and of course in the crypto, but physical gold went up, just not this November that just passed, but the November before, gold was at 1,600 and change an ounce. It's at 3,300, over 3,300 an ounce. Yeah. And you want to know, back when I first was started selling gold, it was at 1,100 back in 2020. Wow. And now it's at 3,300 an ounce. And it's not that gold went up in value. Gold is gold. It's just it's a storage of wealth. It's the same thing. It's just the dollar continues to weaken.
Yeah.
As so it costs more dollars. So it's costing $3,300 to buy that ounce of gold. It's not a stock where it went from $10 a share to $20 a share. So so it's the dollar weakening. And then silver.
That would also show up in the stock market, right? The weakening of the dollar would also cause price inflation in stocks and every market, I would assume.
Yeah, and so that's when you see, but stocks aren't a hedge like gold is a hedge. So it's going up in value as the dollar weakens. But stock is tied to, depending on what company it is and what it's in, as that's going up in value. That's why we don't call gold an investment. If we call it, we're not allowed to call it an investment. It's a storage of wealth. And it's how you pass wealth on through the generations. But because it's a store of wealth, not an investment. So it's not like it has shares like the gold ETF. You're not getting physical gold, and if the ETF price goes from 10 to 12, then you made a couple of percent, right? You made a couple of percent. But if gold an ounce goes from 2,000 to 3,000, it's because the dollar went from that same $100 bill, right, being worth $100, a true $100, to now it's really worth $50 because now it takes $200 to buy $100 worth of stuff because the dollar weakened. So that's why gold went up 50%, because the dollar weakened 50%. So it's not that gold's gone up. It's just that as the dollar weakened over time, it cost more and more. So back in the early 1900s, it cost $20 to buy an ounce of gold, and now it's 3,300. It's because how the dollar over time weakened because of the corruption and printing it and diluting it to a point where it's kind of worthless. So, but hopefully they back it with gold. They back it with maybe a gold note. Who knows? They can back it with gold and then maybe back it with something else, or back it with a crypto. So hopefully they back it with something to keep that from happening again. And then just quick with real estate, the national trends, looks like homes for sale increased 30%. And it's crazy because when you look in communities, even out here in Vegas, even if it looks like a house is bought, it's put up for sale almost immediately. There's so much inventory up for sale out here. So that's homes for sale, 18th consecutive month of growth, where it's been more and more people are trying to selling their home. Wow. So yeah, and it looks like
buying it up.
You what?
I said BlackRock is buying it up.
They are. Yeah, BlackRock is actually they have people going right to people's knocking on their doors and making them offers. it's pretty wild. It's very blatant.
Yeah.
And so also with the tariffs, we have some of the tariffs. What do you think the tariffs will do with crypto? You think that if everything starts to move up in price, what do you think that affects the crypto market in any type of way? Or what do you think about that?
I don't know, honestly. It does seem like stocks and crypto, I've seen them both have, sometimes they're correlated. If one goes up, the other one, sometimes they're inverse. So depending on the narrative, I think, of what's going on, if it's something that is making people want to liquidate their stocks, then crypto will go up. But if it's something that's bad for every market, then crypto sometimes will get pulled with it up or down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, logically, I'm not totally sure. Intuitively, I don't feel like crypto is going to get hit by the tariffs. I think, if anything, it's going to help be an access point for that liquidity to move into if people are liquidating their stocks and their other assets, because crypto's got the biggest green light right now. I mean, obviously stocks are trusted, gold is trusted, real estate, it's all tried and true, but opportunity wise, I think crypto is the best risk to reward ratio at the moment, just because of the way everything is set up. So I could see it actually helping it if people are liquidating and wanting to diversify into something that could be a better opportunity potentially.
Yeah, I was, because when I was looking at it too, I the same thing. I had the same thought. Like, I really, I don't know how the tariffs are going to directly affect crypto, but you can see that depending on the crypto, if one could act more like a hedge, and one, if one could maybe get hit by it. But I think it would have to be, what industry is it tied to? Which is like the same thing, the same argument for silver. It's like, hey, look, all these industries use silver because it's a great conductor of electricity. And right now, before with the electric car mandates and there's not even enough silver to put as many electric cars on the road. Just that alone, there wasn't enough silver in the supply. But, with tipped ballistic missiles, right, are tipped with 500 ounces of pure silver. And now with the wars going on. So when you see that, it's like, yes, that's good for silver. But if we start to head into a recession, or we start to head into a bad economy, then that can hurt silver, because all the supply the supply is not going to be used up as much. So supply and demand starts to work against silver going up. So it's like a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? So it really depends. Where gold is like a true hedge against inflation. That's basically what it's been for millennia. So we see it'll do well if there is inflation. So it'd be interesting to see.
Gold and silver, I think, especially gold, will do good no matter what. And hopefully silver will catch up too and find its higher valuation. I feel like those are probably the safest bets among anything, but not as much risk. And so maybe not as much high potential reward as with some of the more volatile cryptos. But I think for people will be good if they buy gold and silver. Like, it's going to help them no matter what. It might not increase as much as some of the cryptos, but it's definitely gonna, I think, be revalued to higher. I mean, even Trump wasn't he saying 50 to 100K gold is what he was kind of eyeing? So
yeah, I mean, dude, if you look at the debt clock, I don't know if you have the one that has the one that has like everything, has all the different. I mean, the whole page, your whole computer screen will be filled with different types of numbers. They're saying that like gold should be at like 30,000 an ounce, and silver should be up in the 20s. It's like 20,000 or 15 or 20,000 per ounce. When you compare it to the dollar, and so they both should be a lot higher. But down the road they're saying it, and then they're saying that some people think that gold and silver could trade at parity at those high levels.
Yeah.
And so, who knows with that, what's going to happen. But if it keeps, some of the things that Trump is doing now, I think everything will start to balance out. Yeah. And if all we wanted to do, really, I would be ecstatically happy. Don't have to shoot to the moon. We just want everything to trade the way it's supposed to trade.
Yeah.
And if that's it. No manipulation, no bullshit, no suppressing, none of that. Just balance out the markets, let it have its true valuations. They go up and down. They'll do their thing, but there's no manipulation of it. There's no for some people to get hurt and some people to always profit. There's none of that. If we can get to that, I think for probably 85, 90% of Americans, will be very happy with that, because for the most part, we want to invest in American companies, right? Whether it's in a 401ks or whatever we invest in, or crypto or whatever it may be. But if everything just traded normally and it wasn't all the manipulation that happens, everyone could do well, instead of like it is now, a small minority of people doing exceptionally well and everybody else continuing to make them richer and struggling. So it's just like, if we can get everything to just normal markets, just do what the markets do with none of that, I would be happy with that. I would be very happy with that. So,
amen. I shared the debt clock here. If you want to pull it up on the screen, look at it.
There it is.
So
look at that.
There's so much. So many. Oh, here they got a secret window. Let's see. American Super Cycle, a golden age of wonders.
No.
And then they've even got hidden wealth added on down here. Total hidden wealth, 169 trillion. Yeah. Trillion. $497,000 per citizen.
Okay. So if you look over here, this is where they changed that. It changed up a little bit, but they have dollar to silver ratio, 5 years. It's like $1,500 per ounce. So it's for silver.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And then with gold, they have it at 12,000 per ounce, dollar to gold ratio, and those used to be higher. Yeah, so those used to be higher. And what's crazy is that if they changed it, or maybe it should have been this, who knows? But if they changed it and they made it to where it's like 12,000 an ounce, and they didn't want it to be too high, and they changed it to 12,000, that's a lot. That's a big difference from 3,000.
Yeah, that's a 4x.
Yeah, and that's in a storage of wealth. It's not in an investment like crypto is an investment, right? Because we want it to go from one thing, we want XRP to go from $2 to 10,000 or 5,000. So that's different than with gold. Is just a store of wealth, and that difference is huge. And just think, if you have that, it's just a store of wealth, and it's 12,000 an ounce. I mean, what are you leaving to your family, and how does that affect generationally? Regular people that own some gold, it affects them in a huge way. That's a life changer for maybe their kids, or at least for them, if they have 15% of their portfolio in, say, in gold and silver. That's a big difference for probably 70% of Americans, 50% of Americans that actually have gold and silver.
Yeah, for sure.
It's wild when you actually see the everything on here. When you see it, it's crazy, because the ratios don't even make sense now, because it's supposed to be at about 45-1 gold to silver. And so if you look at where gold is now and where silver is now, it's in the probably 88 or 90-1.
And look, they even have the future USA Treasury dollars on here.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, the Treasury dollars.
The Kennedy thing. And this is literally on my birthday, June 4th, that he issued. I mean, decades before I was born, but
yeah. You look good for your age, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, it's Executive Order 11110 was that one that was going to issue Treasury dollars, and then obviously that was right before he was taken out.
Look at that. These are debt-free. Look at that, debt-free, interest-free notes. Wow.
I didn't know that Lincoln had issued Treasury dollars. Did you know that?
No.
That was
wow, that's interesting.
The greenbacks, I guess.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, look at that. And then Kennedy tried to do it too, and he was killed.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. And you know, there was a story in here when on the top, when it was around where it said something like monetary. And when you click the history, I don't know if it's the up on the top left. Yeah, or maybe it could be up to, but I don't know if it's the time machine or one. It talks about what the founding fathers said you had to be scared, nervous of. The only thing they were nervous of is the corruption from the money players, because whoever controls the money supply controls the world. And so that's what they were talking about, where that if trouble was going to come, this is where it was going to come from. And all those years ago, they were right.
Wow.
So, but it was actual like a history of it, where like written, like you can actually read it. But I haven't seen it. I haven't. I haven't seen it in a while.
Huh.
I don't know if they took it out, because and even the years went way back. That's the mobile app one, but that's mortgage calculator supply. I think in America has the biggest cache of gold. And did you see there was like 430 tons of missing gold?
No.
Yeah, I got Chuck sent it to me.
It's under the Vatican, eh?
Probably. The Vatican's a lot of trouble, man.
Yeah,
auto sales and everything.
Trump doing that whole. You saw him post the picture of him as the Pope. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
That was like a power move, like message. I feel like, even though he wrote it off, when asked about it, he's like, "Oh, I didn't even know about it. Someone just posted it." But I feel like that's such a message of like, yeah, we've got the gold, we've got the power, we've got the control now.
So, hey, look at this. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner, from 1913 to now, the fiat dollar is down 96.23%.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Dude, that's 112 years. It's almost 100% loss of value.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's why they buried it a little bit.
They even called them a cartel. It says the collapse in purchasing power of the Federal Reserve Banking Cartel dollars since its inception.
It's crazy, man. It's and I'm telling you, and they had and this is probably I don't know when they look at it, probably 2021 when I was at, because it was at when I was selling gold, is when it had that whole thing on the money players, and they like the JP Morgans, the Wall Street, the financiers. Those are the people that would eventually, they're worried about getting corrupted, because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and what gives you the most power is controlling the money.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when you start to dig in to these things, and you realize when you look at savings, per year to like debt per year, U.S. debt compared to U.S. savings. I mean, it's just, everything is ass backwards, man. Everything is just, and hopefully, like I said, if everything just balances out, it don't even have to swing the other way. Just balance it out and give everyone a fair shot. I think it'll be a good deal.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
So
before we wrap up, let me go over crypto prices real quick.
Yes, do you think?
Because those are going up too. So I don't know if maybe this is, I mean, you just obviously went over everything in the other markets. I don't know if that's a response to Trump's announcement today regarding the trade deal between us and the UK, or if it's separate from that. But I imagine that's probably influencing this to a degree. But Bitcoin broke 100K again. So it's at 101, up almost 5% in 24 hours. Ethereum is up 13%, even more than XRP, which is up 5.5%. Doge is up 11, but then Stronghold, which we were just talking about, is up like 19% right now to the day.
Nice.
So that's the biggest that it's pumped in many, many months. So good timing for us to be talking about that today, because it's been very stagnant for the last few months. So that's pretty exciting to see.
Nice. And see everything. Yeah. And I think really, the things that you talk about in the academy, I think that even though it did really well at the end of last year, the way it pumped, but I think that it's going to go. I mean, I think the bull run to come is going to be one for the ages. I think it's going to.
Oh yeah.
I think
I agree.
Yeah. I think
especially with these smaller coins like Stronghold and Corium. Here's Stronghold's all-time chart. Its previous all-time high was up near 6 cents. This is showing 3, but it did wick up to like 6, and it's only less than a penny right now. So it's still got a lot of room to move. And it's this market cap is technically incorrect because the circulating supply is wrong. It's about 3 times what they have listed. So it's about $150 million market cap right now. Where Corium is actually even smaller than that. It's at a $62 million market cap for its circulating supply.
Jayse, what's considered where it goes from, like, say, a small cap, mid cap, large cap? If you were to say, where would you say when it starts to kind of dip its toe into a large cap?
To a large cap?
Like a market cap, yeah. Like when it goes like, okay, that's a large cap market. That's big.
I'd say a billion is kind of the start of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I saw, it's subjective how people break it down, but I saw somebody the other day, actually it was the Decent wallet that posted this. It was their page. Their breakdown was saying that anything over or anything under 100 million, they called a micro cap. And that was their smallest designation. And then I think they must have had it like 100 million and then 500 million and then billion and then 10 billion and then 100 billion. So XRP is like 130 billion or something like that. So that would be, pretty big.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is like a trillion or something though.
That's crazy.
So that would obviously be the biggest, but yeah, I would say $1 billion is when coins start getting into the top like 50. Let's take a look and see. So yeah. So about $1 billion, $1.5 billion would get you around the top 50. Nearing 2 billion. So that's when I would say things are really starting to get momentum. And that's what, I think most of these coins that we're looking at are going to be getting up there when the utility kicks in the near future. Corium did some pumping this last week because they did an upgrade. It's actually, let's see, up 40% on the month and 65% on the year. But you can see from the chart here, it's just starting to get started going back up where it was in December of last year. And they had an update to their blockchain recently. So that was part of the, the increase in the hype and the speculation around it, that they added a decentralized exchange built in, which is good. And I don't know why there's a picture of 2 guys kissing over here. That's kind of weird. But Sologenic's also pumping today. It's up almost 13%. And this is the one that I've been buying more recently. Last couple times I bought Solo because I had to sell a bunch of it in 2023. So I'm going to get my bags back. But yeah, everything's looking good. Everything's up today. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it looks like, the markets look, it's nice when you see green.
Yeah.
When you see red, you got like, yikes.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that, despite kind of the complexities, right, that you can get into with crypto and different investments, but particularly in crypto and the fluctuations in today's landscape, economically at least, it's essential to really focus on what the long-term goals are rather than the kind of the short-term trading, unless that you're just a short-term day-to-day trader. But like we talk about is, whatever it does over the next few days, weeks, months, it's not, it's not something to stress out about because, like, Jay says too, it is a long-term hold. For what we think, in our opinion, is we think XRP is going to be the future, right? And the family of cryptos are going to be the future. So it's about what are your long-term goals and what's going to get you there? And that's what you're holding on to. So short-term volatility, can it be stressful? Yes, but don't let it encompass everything, and don't let it stump your personal growth in moving forward and learning and moving forward in this, because Albert Einstein said it the best: in the midst of every crisis, there's great opportunity. And so that's what we're seeing in some of all the chaos that's out there. If you can take a deep breath and just stay relaxed, knowing your long-term goals are going to be met because you're in the right place at the right time. Right. So when that happens, that's when you're able to see the fuzzies, right? That's when you're able to see those things, because you stay calm and you can, feel into what's out there, what you do, what change you need to make. And when some of these have great returns. So, and it is true, during most of the bubbles that burst, that's when the people and hedge funds make the most money, when there is the most blood in the streets, because all that volatility, there's massive opportunity there. So stay informed, stay adaptable, make sure you get a mentor or a coach if you need one, and continue to seek knowledge, and remember, knowledge isn't power by itself. Knowledge with action, that's what gives you power. Just getting knowledge and not doing anything is knowledge. But where the power comes from is actually taking the action on it. And so that's that, don't get lost in just getting knowledge without make a move, do something, even if it's small, consistent investments, like cost averaging. And again, nothing that Jayse and I say, we're not saying it as far as investment advice. It's just our opinion. And so the path to financial empowerment is built on resilience. It's built on education, but most importantly, proactive decision making, right? And so that's what we want to make sure, and that's why we try to simplify it, right, Jayse? We want to simplify it so you can make the decision and you don't get paralyzed by thinking it's too complex, or it's too this, or it's too that. Want to try and right, and I think that's important, and I think that's exactly what his academy does, the Conscious Crypto Academy, bite size. And really simplifies even some of the most complex things, simplifies it to where you can understand it and feel comfortable moving forward. So I think you do a great job with that. But do you have anything to add?
You said it well. I think the only other thing I'd say is have fun with it, which I've said before, but I think that's such in life in general. I think if you approach things with play instead of with stress, and doesn't mean that it's not going to have significance, but when your significance comes and your fulfillment comes from things being out of play and fun, it just makes the whole thing so much easier. So I don't approach my crypto as this super intense, and of course I've gotten stressed out about it. And that's been a big life lesson and spiritual lesson too. Like when you get stressed about anything, it shows you where you got to kind of work on yourself. But, in general, if you approach it with play and fun and follow your curiosity with it, I think that's where most of the magic is made.
Yeah, 100% correct. I think you have to laugh and you have to keep it light. So, but one of the things I wanted to do, Jayse, if you have your thing, I understand. I just wanted to, I just wanted to get. I'm putting the Grabovoi codes in the chat. They're up here. So we got one for the financial wealth is 318798. And if you use this in meditation, it puts a fine point on that spear. And you can even lock it on. I have it on my phone lock, my screen lock. And between writing it and meditating on it, it's really, and you do your affirmations. It's a great way to flow into that. And then we also have the code for, this is, I like to align with the actual frequency of what I want. So I wanted the code that aligns with the frequency of the frequency of abundance. So whatever that may mean to you, but The frequency that you can attain abundance is 519-7148. That's great to visualize, and they would say glowing gold light while you breathe and you really feel into it. So it's a great way to kind of, if you are looking to do that, it's a great way to start to manifest what you're looking for, especially if you have the normal practice, of meditating. It's a great way to just make it a little more powerful. So those are the codes. I promised them on the last show that I was gonna, and I totally forgot to put them on. So I knock it out on this one.
Divine time.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's it. I know we went pretty far over. Jayse, it was great to have you back, my friend.
Me too.
And
Thanks for having me.
Always
fun.
Yeah. And so every other Thursday, Jayse and I will be doing this. It'll be at either 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So we'll see what works good for you. But we'll be back in 2 weeks. And thanks everyone for joining. Anyone who watches this after the stream, any questions you have, please write them. I record all the questions down. And so I'll try to incorporate them in the next show so we have them for a segment. But other than that, you have any closing? You good?
Nope, that's it. I got to get running. So, yeah, thanks for having me, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yes, I love you, my brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you guys. Peace
Take
out.
it easy. Bye.